I've been running Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for over 5 years now, but I don't think I would have lasted 5 minutes without all of the tools that I have at my disposal. A DM is only ever as good as the resources and what they draw on for inspiration. And I think that it's important to have a decent catalog of those when you start, in that I know that I definitely would not have taken to DMing as much as I have, or to the game probably as much as I have, without being able to design balanced combat encounters. My name is Quinn the GM. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a few weeks. I'm in a new location here. It's been a bit transitional for me here. But we're back in the saddle, and we're going to get into a resource today that I think is very important for any Dungeon Master to have access to, because I think it really can improve just your general combat and the way that you balance encounters, both just generally for random encounters or big boss fights. It really allows you to break down the math of 5th edition and help you work with it and figure out what would be best both for players and for whatever situation you want to throw them in. So today I'm going to be breaking down Kobold Fight Club and how much of a great resource that is and how much I've used it over the years. So be sure to stay tuned, like the video if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel to see more, and yeah, let's get into it. Kobold Fight Club sounds like a weird name to begin with. We'll get into that a little bit. It's a site that I've been using for almost all of my DMing time. I'd say about 4 of those 5 years probably. And it's a site where you're able to design encounters for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. It has a list of essentially every published monster in Dungeons & Dragons, including their challenge rating, their monster type, their environment, their alignment, or their standard alignment, I should say, as that's been a bit touch and go in recent years. And it allows you to plug in player levels and their number of people in the party, and using those, it calculates what is an easy, what is a medium, what is a hard, and what's a deadly encounter for your group. It's quite interesting because you're able to essentially figure out what is meant to be a challenge for your players in this moment, in this level that they're currently residing in, particularly because CR in 5th edition is a little bit of a nightmare. I've been DMing for 5 years, like I said, and I do not understand it in the slightest. I don't pretend to. It's a weird formula, aspects of which Wizards has not ever released to the public, which I'm not a huge fan of, but hopefully they end up doing something similar to that, either for 5th edition or for whatever the next edition is, 5.5, 6e, whatever's coming in 2024. But overall, challenge rating is one of the things that is a very difficult hurdle to jump as a new DM, and Kobold Fight Club is the thing you can use to jump it. It is something that is able to calculate entirely the CR of the monster for your group's level, essentially what CR would be appropriate, and is able to design encounters based around that and the math therein. It's also got a random encounter generator, which I really love. It allows you to generate different types of encounter, being, let me read them here, boss with minions, duo monsters, trio of monsters, and horde. It's great variety, and I think it's an important thing for me to realize, as I found myself often kind of either going towards entirely boss monsters or entirely horde fights and really getting stuck in a rut of doing one or the other. It's important to mix it up, and it's good to have the random element of a generator here to be able to do it. I know I've had a lot of fun over the years just clicking and seeing what pops out for appropriate encounters for my party's level, and sometimes I'll just run with it. I think I had one that was like a Megalodon and a were-shark that popped out at one point, and I ended up rolling with that. It's also got a bunch of online resources at its disposal. Particularly, there's a Monster of the Week component, which are able to add those to the official monsters on the page here. And it's a way that I've learned about a lot of monsters that I've really enjoyed using over the years. The Megalodon that I mentioned, things like I used the Wendigo. That was an early encounter in my first campaign. Or second campaign, rather. I can't keep my campaign straight. But it's great to have that random element, and you are able to further specify it with the environments in which monsters reside, or specific CRs, or specific monster types. It's great if you want to have your party just fight demons, or just fight things that are aquatic, which is really useful for me in a seafaring campaign right now. You're able to do that, and it'll still generate under those restrictions, essentially. It limits the options down to monsters that only meet that criteria and generates from there. It's really great to have that at your disposal, and I think it's just fantastic to be able to see what resides in each environment, because I know it can be a bit of a pain to go through each book and filter by, go to the appendix, see what's in the sea, what's in a mountain, whatever, but it's very much easier to sort this way and figure it out from there, and it really saves a ton of time. I know D&D Beyond can do similar things, but there you have to kind of buy every monster, and in this case, you don't have the stats of any monster, you just have the name listed and the CR and the environments and whatnot, and it's up to you to find it from there. It's kind of a starter path resource in that way. It's also updated a fair bit over the years. It broke for a while, and I was heartbroken, but now it's back as Kobold Plus Fight Club, and they've recently added a ton of really cool new features and completely revamped the UI. My favorite of these features is the encounter has always been rated by easy, medium, hard, deadly. But now, in addition to that, it has something that tells you what the encounter feels like from a player perspective. Because feeling hard and being hard are very different things in Dungeons & Dragons. An encounter that might statistically be hard might feel deadly to players, which is quite disconcerting, at least on the player's end. It's good to know as a DM that, oh, I didn't mess up, it's okay, this encounter is supposed to feel deadly, but it is an encounter that they should be able to overcome. It's supposed to just be hard. It's great to have that as a guideline for new DMs. I wish it had been there when I was starting out, because there were some encounters that were hard and my players eventually won, but it would have saved me a lot of doubting myself in the moment and worrying about whether or not I need to edit it in the moment or reduce hit points or anything else. Furthermore, I think it's great to have those levels of encounter present, as I think it's important to vary your levels of encounter as a Dungeon Master. Not every fight should be a super hard boss fight. Not every fight should be a walk in the park. And it's great to have, just essentially, if you're planning a dungeon especially, just the ability to plan fights of different difficulty levels throughout and see what players take, what players don't, and just figure out what each fight is, what each room you want to throw at players is. I'm sorry for pulling my hair so much. It's very long and it's all over the place today, but yeah, no, it's good for dungeons especially in order to just gauge what is going to be difficult for players. And it's also fairly easy to adjust on the fly if your players take a left when you expected them to take a right, in order to either bump things down, bump things up. Maybe you add one more Kuo-toa in order to increase the difficulty of an encounter or something. And it's just easier to click that and see how exactly that impacts the encounter as a whole. They also recently added a filter for legendary status, which is great. I love legendary monsters, and I think it's great to be able to sort them that way, and I don't think there is a current way to sort them that way in any official source books or materials or anything. Kobold Fight Club is responsible for nearly all of my encounter balance. And furthermore, if you're using a lot of homebrew creatures like I do, you just need to approximate that to a CR that you think it resembles, or another creature that you think it's near to in power level. Or if you've calculated a CR using online tools or your own math, if you're better than me, you can plug in a creature with that CR into the encounter generator and see what it would be for the players as an encounter. It calculates it the same way. It's quite useful for that, and I've used it a lot, even with creatures that aren't on the simulator, and wouldn't be because it doesn't exist outside of my Google Drive. But yeah, no, that is most of the stuff I wanted to say about Kobold Plus Fight Club. I will link this in the description. If you're a Dungeon Master 5th Edition and haven't tried this, I cannot recommend it enough. It has transformed the way I do encounters overall, and I think it's just such a fantastic resource for anybody to use. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I do all kinds of video on D&D and other stuff, just really mainly TTRPG stuff, Dungeon Master advice, everything. And I really enjoy making content for you guys, and it's great to see people liking the video and subscribing to the channel generally. So I really appreciate all that, and I hope you all have a good time using Kobold Fight Club. Thank you for joining me.